Greetings, I'm Heather Lang-Cassera, Clark County, Nevada's Poet Laureate, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today with a local Nevadan who lives here in Henderson and an incredible poet. Her name is Elizabeth Quiñones-Zaldaña. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
It's such an honor to have you. So, could you tell us a little bit about how you got started as a poet?
Well, I began writing poetry. It just happened in a very unexpected way. I was I was in high school, and it was a terrible time in my life. But as a way to cope, I kept a journal with me, and I would write all my persistent thoughts. And I just carried it with me. And after a while, I stopped using it for just writing, journaling, and I started to listen to things people were saying, and interesting turns of phrase, and pithy comments, and quotations. I would collect them and write them, and images. I created collages, and I guess just by accident, I started to write poems that way. I started transcribing people's poetry into this little book that I would carry with me, and it was a comfort to me. And then I guess that's where it began. So.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So, do you have any advice for folks who might be a little bit nervous about poetry? Maybe they're a little tentative about reading it or writing it?
Well, I think if you're anything like me, sometimes these giant volumes, they can be a little intimidating.
I agree.
So I would say if you pick up an anthology of any kind that seems of interest, just flip through it and just read a poem. And if it's striking to you in some way, put a post-it note in it and move on. I tend to like having small collections of poetry to read.
Me too.
I feel like it's more cohesive as a whole, and that I can really kind of get to know the poet better, and then I'm not so I guess overwhelmed by the number of remaining pages. I can just linger, and I tend to read things over and over again, which I think is something that really lends itself to poetry. Actually, there's a first reading, but then there's layers and layers of meaning and metaphoric significance that I think we can pick up on. So I would say just don't hold yourself to some strange standard. I think with novels you might feel a little bit more committed to having to read through, although maybe not, but with poetry it doesn't have to be that way. A piece can be like a standalone thing, and so that's how I would approach it personally.
Yeah, I love that. That's part of what I love about poetry too, is I can open a book, flip through it, find something bite-sized. So if I even only have 5 minutes, I can spend a little time with it, close it, and I've read some poems and read a poem and enjoyed it. So
yeah, I think that's how it works for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And I know that we're both huge advocates of going to the library, so definitely, go to the library, check out some poetry, flip
Sit
through.
in the aisle and
Yes.
just kind of like pull things off.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, thanks for the advice. Thanks for sharing that. So today we are here at the River Mountain Trail in Henderson.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you could let us know, so you're going to read a poem for us today. Really excited about that. Could you talk a little bit about how this place relates to your poem?
Well, the poem that I'm going to read is called The Visitor, and it has to do with the nature of suffering, and also it has to do with the nature of consciousness, and also the divine. And so I guess I'm inspired by this place because a few years ago I lived in this area within walking distance, and my family and I would walk up here and see the sunset, or if we wanted to in the mornings before the heat really started bearing down, we'd come up while it was still a little bit cool. And it's a really beautiful place. The desert is a place of juxtaposition, I think. The severity and the beauty. And so I took a lot of inspiration from that in writing the poem. There is a scorpion in it, and I think that I used it as a metaphor, but just the beauty and the severity, I think that it really carries in a place like this. I love the desert, and I love that I've brought my children here, even though it wasn't something of my own choosing. It's just the life that has kind of found me, and so that's why I chose this spot. And you should come up here, it's really nice.
Well, would you be willing to read your poem for us?
Sure, yes,
Thank
I'll
you
read
so
it.
much, Elizabeth.
Thanks a lot. Okay. And this is called The Visitor. I do not invite you, and yet you come. I have not prayed for you, still you appear, like the scorpion in the pot, full of potential. The visitor playing dead an inch from my bare foot, pressed between gaps in mortar, hidden in the palms that grew massive. The outer fronds make their bow, but it's the warm air that draws you. You with your reasons left unexplained. Let others extol your virtue in the kingdom of earth. I concede we are both creatures brought into being, and so I scan the sky for one reason, the ground for another. My children fly beyond grasp. Undeterred, they climb the retaining wall to swing from the smooth limbs of the olive tree, and I am left to reckon with your existence alongside my own. Agent of suffering, you do exist, don't you? Or if you do not, let me lie beside the open door, indifferent as a number, motionless unless moved. But you will not play dead forever, no, but take the chance given to strike or flee, contingents running a course. Where we converge, we are found out. And yes, I pray, past venom and withdrawal, to see which branch may bear both our weight.
Elizabeth, that was stunning. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
gorgeous. So thank you for being here today, and thank you folks for joining us for poetry. If you're looking for more ways to find poems and poetry, there's a couple of resources I'd like to share. One is Poetry Promise. The executive director is my predecessor, Vogue Robinson, incredible advocate for the literary arts. So Poetry Promise, they have a calendar on their website. Also, Eat More Art Vegas is a great way to find some spoken word poetry, all sorts of poetry actually. So thanks again for joining us, and take care.